Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In continuity with the last lecture, some of the external features of the medulla oblongata were left. So we will continue with the external features of the medulla oblongata. So in the last lecture, we finished with the external features of the ventral surface of the medulla oblongata from its upper end up its lower end and its relation with the spinal cord. Then we discussed the external features of the closed part of the medulla oblongata, the dorsal view of the closed part of the medulla oblongata. Now, the external features of the open part of the medulla oblongata, dorsal view, is the topic of today's lecture. Now, to compare with the features of the posterior surface of the midbrain, pons, then posterior surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Now, I told you yesterday like this is dorsal aspect of the medulla oblongata, and here the central canal open, so this is open part of the medulla oblongata. What are its external features? Now, before that, you can see this is the posterior surface of the midbrain, and we know it comprises of a pair of superior caliculi and a pair of inferior caliculi. Separated by a cruciform sulcus. And at the lower end of the cruciform sulcus, there is a ridge here known as the frenulum vellae. And on each side of the frenulum vellae, below the inferior cariculus, there is attachment of the trochlear nerve. This is right trochlear nerve, and this is left trochlear nerve. Right and left trochlear nerves. Now, what are the external features of the posterior surface of the midbrain? Now, you know there is median sulcus dividing the posterior surface of the midbrain into right and left equal halves. This is median sulcus. Now, on each side of the median sulcus, I told you there is a longitudinal ridge known as the medial eminence. Medial eminence. Now, the lateral limit of the medial eminence is marked by a vertical sulcus known as the sulcus limitans. And I told you at the upper end of sulcus limitans, there is a bluish area known as locus coeruleus. Then in lower part of the sulcus limitus, there is inverted V-shaped depression on each side, known as the superior fovea. Now supromedial to superior fovea, on each medial eminence, there is facial calculus, small projection on each side. This is known as facial calculus. These were the external features of the dorsal surface of the pons. Now, most of these external features of the dorsal surface of the pons continue into the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Now you know this is median sulcus descending in the middle of the posterior surface of the pons. Now between posterior surface of the pons and medulla oblongata, here there are a number of nerve fibers known as stria medullaris. Thus, at the junction of dorsal surface of the pons and dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata, some of the nerve fibers, they start at the median sulcus and run laterally on either side. Thus, at the junction of dorsal surface of the pons and dorsal surface of open part of the medulla oblongata, these nerve fibers are known as stria medullaris. Now, this junction between the pons and medulla oblongata, both dorsally and ventrally again, junction between pons and medulla oblongata is known as pontomedullary junction. This is lower part of the pons, and this also form a junction between pons and medulla oblongata known as pontomedullary junction. This junction is also known as bulbomedullary sulcus. Why bulbo? You know, this is medulla oblongata. The old name for the medulla oblongata is bulb. It is bulb-like, broader above and gradually tapers down. So previously this was known as bulb, and then its name was changed. Instead of bulb, we name it medulla oblongata. But we should know this name also. Why? Because there are some tracts. For example, tectobulbar tract. Its name indicates that it arises from the tectum of the midbrain and enter into the bulb or enter into the medulla oblongata. So the name of the tract is retained, the tectobulbar tract. Similarly, this junction is also known as bulbopontine sulcus. So you should know the other name of the medulla oblongata, also known as the bulb. So here between the dorsal surface of the midbrain and dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata, this is marked by a number of nerve fibers called striae medullaris. And the striae medullaris is at the junction of the pontomedullary junction or bulbopontine sulcus. Now, posterior surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. You can see here medulla oblongata open part. This is the medulla oblongata closed part that we already discussed in detail. And you know these features which are important. This is a restiform body. You know it is the other name for inferior cerebellar peduncle. Then this rounded elevation laterally located is known as cuneate tubercle. And still below and medial to it, another tubercle known as gracile tubercle. So on each side of this dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata from above downward, the restiform body or inferior cerebellar peduncle, cuneate tubercle, and the gracile tubercle. Here is posterior median sulcus. Posterior median sulcus. Now we will discuss the external features of the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Can you see it's triangular in shape with the base directed upwards and apex directed downward. The base is at the bulbopontine sulcus or pontomedullary junction, and it can be identified easily by these nerve fibers known as the striae medullaris. Then infrolateral border, right infrolateral, left introlateral border. The right and left infrolateral borders, they meet at the apex. So base above, on each side infrolateral border, and below the two infrolateral border meet just behind the opening of the central canal. This is the apex. Now these infrolateral borders, they are marked by a small ridge known as the tinea, a small ridge of nervous tissue known as the tinea. The small ridge of nervous tissue along the right and left infrolateral borders of the open part is known as tinea. Now, below the right and left tinea at the apex, they meet by a fold, a membranous fold like this. This fold is known as the this small triangular fold is known as the obex. Now can you see it is like this, and there is a concavity behind like this. This is the fold called obex, but here you can see there is a pocket here. This is why you can't see the open end of the central canal. If you cut it, then you will see here is the opening of the central canal. So a small triangular fold arising from tinea of one side to the other one, they cover it, and behind it there is a small pocket which leads into the central canal of the closed part of the medulla oblongata. So this is known as the obex. Now here in the midline there is a sulcus known as the median sulcus, which divides the dorsal surface of the which divide the dorsal surface of the open part called median sulcus. Can you see here? The middle of the posterior surface of the pons, there is sulcus known as the median sulcus. And this median sulcus of the dorsal surface of the pons is continued as median sulcus of the open part of the medulla oblongata because it is in the median plane. Now look here, I want to remove this confusion. On the outer surface of the medulla oblongata, this is posterior median sulcus. This is known as posterior median sulcus. So what is the difference? What is the difference in terminology? This is called median sulcus, and on the outer surface of the closed part of the medulla oblongata, this is known as posterior median sulcus. So this is posterior median sulcus. It is just median sulcus, traversing the middle of the dorsal surface of the pons and continue downwards in the middle of the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata and is known as the median sulcus. Now, on the dorsal surface of the pons, on each side of the median sulcus, there was a vertical elevation known as the medial eminence. Medial eminence. This is right medial eminence, this is left. Now, these eminences continue into the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. On each side of the median sulcus, the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata is the median sulcus, which is in continuity with the median sulcus of the dorsal surface of the pons. Median eminence, not medial sulcus. Now can you see here? This is median eminence of the on the dorsal surface of the pons. On the right side, it continues into the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata and is known as median eminence. On this side again, this is median eminence on the dorsal surface of the pons, which continue downwards on the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. So you can see this is median eminence, pontine part and medullary part. Now each median eminence, laterally I told you it is limited by a sulcus known as the sulcus limitans. This is median eminence on the posterior surface of the pons, and laterally it is limited by sulcus limitans. Here again, in this side, this is the medial eminence of the pons, limited by sulcus limitans. Here again, the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Again, the medial eminence is bounded by a sulcus known as the sulcus limitans. Sulcus limitans. Thus, medial eminence of pons is continued as medial eminence of dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata on right side and left side. And second, the sulcus limitans on the dorsal surface of the pons is continued as sulcus limitans on the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Both these sulci, right, left, they limit the lateral extent of the medial eminence on each side. And in the middle, both medial eminences, they are separated from each other by a sulcus which is in the median plane known as the median sulcus, which continue from the pons into the open part of the medulla oblongata. Now, at the level of the lower part of the sulcus limitans of the open part of the medulla oblongata, again there is inverted V-shaped depression, one on the right side and one on the left side. At the level of sulcus limitans, inverted V-shaped depression. This is known as the inferior fovea. Inferior fovea. Now look here, posterior surface of the pons, this is sulcus limitans. Above is the locus coeruleus. In the lower part, there is inverted V-shaped depression known as the superior fovea. Right side, left side. Similarly, on the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata, in the lower part of the sulcus limitans, again there is inverted V-shaped depression on each side, known as the inferior fovea. Right inferior fovea, left inferior fovea. Now, supromedial to the inferior fovea, there is a triangular area. On each side. Over the medial eminence, supromedial to the inferior fovea, there is a triangular area. This is an area, not an elevation. This is known as the vagal triangle. Vagal triangle, also known as trigonum vagi. This is inferior fovea at the level of sulcus limitans, supromedial to the inferior fovea. This part of the medial eminence, this triangular area, with the apex directed downward and base upward. This is called vagal triangle or trigonum vagi. Why? Because deep to it lie the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve, 10th cranial nerve, on each side. Then inferior to the inferior fovea, there is another triangular area. On both sides. This is known as the hypoglossal triangle. Hypoglossal triangle. Or trigonum hypoglossi. Because deep to it lie the nucleus of the hypoglossal nerve, 12th cranial nerve. So there are some features. One, that in the, over the lower part of the sulcus limitus, there is inferior fovea on each side. Then medial to the sulcus limitus is the medial eminence, one right, one left. Now, supromedial to the inferior fovea, there is a triangular area with the apex directed downward, base upward. This is called vagal trigone because deep to it lie the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. Inferior to inferior fovea on both sides, there is another triangle with the apex directed upward and base directed downward. This is known as hypoglossal triangle. Why? Because inside here lie the nucleus of the hypoglossal nerve. Now here supralateral to the inferior fovea, there is an area on each side where lateral to the sulcus limitans and supralateral to the inferior fovea. Supralateral to the inferior fovea. This area, this is known as the vestibular area. vestibular area. And still supralateral to the vestibular area, here there is another area which is slightly elevated on each side. This is cochlear area. Because this area is slightly elevated, so this is also known as cochlear tubercle. Why vestibular area and cochlear tubercle? You know, there is a cranial nerve known as the vestibulocochlear nerve. Vestibulocochlear nerve. You know, this is 8th cranial nerve. Actually, it is the cochlear nerve which comprises of two nerves, vestibular nerve and cochlear nerve. Vestibular nerve is for balance, equilibrium, posture, and cochlear is for hearing. So, a cranial nerve which is two in one. One part is the vestibular nerve, the other is cochlear nerve, collectively known as the vestibulocochlear nerve. So these nerves also have nuclei. So here in the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata, this is vestibular area because deep to it lie the vestibular nuclei. There are 4 vestibular nuclei on the left side and 4 on the right side. Then supralateral to it near the inferior cerebral peduncle, here is cochlear area because here nuclei of the cochlear division of the vestibulocochlear nerve are located. The cochlear nuclei are 2 in number, ventral and dorsal, one anterior and one posterior to the inferior cerebral peduncle. So again, I will repeat very important features of the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. Most of the features of the dorsal surface of the bones continue downward into the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata. So, it is in the midline is the median sulcus from dorsal surface of the bones to the dorsal surface of open part of medulla oblongata. Then medial eminence on each side of the median sulcus. Median eminence on each side is limited by sulcus limitans. At the level of sulcus limitans, in case of bones, there is superior fovea, and at the level of sulcus limitans in the medullary area is the inferior fovea. At the upper end of the sulcus limitans, in case of bones, there is locus coeruleus, neurons which contain the melaninic pigment and visible to the naked eye. Then supromedial to the superior fovea on the medial eminence, in case of dorsal surface of the bones, there are 2 hill-like swellings known as the facial calliculus. Then the medial eminence continue into the posterior surface of the medulla oblongata open part on each side, separated by median sulcus, limited laterally by the sulcus limitans. Just like here at the level of sulcus limitans was superior fovea, here in the medulla is inferior fovea. Now supromedial to the inferior fovea, there is triangular area over the medial eminence, the base of which is directed upward, apex downward. This is called vagal trigone or triangle or trigonum vagi. Why? Because deep to it lie the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve has many nuclei. Now below the inferior fovea, again there is a triangular area, but here the apex is above, base is below. This is called hypoglossal triangle, trigonum hypoglossai. Why? Because here the nucleus of 12th cranial nerve, hypoglossal nerve is situated. lateral to the inferior fovea in the medullary part, there is vestibular area where nuclei of the vestibular division of the vestibulocochlear nerve are located deeply. And still supralateral to it, near the inferior peduncle, which is not shown here, is the cochlear area or cochlear tubercle or auditory tubercle. Here lie the nuclei of cochlear division of vestibulocochlear nerve. Now, in the lower part of the open portion of the medulla oblongata, here there is a white band known as the funiculus saphenous above the apex of this triangular area. A band of white matter. This is known as funiculus saphenous. Funiculus saphenous. In the lower part of the dorsal surface of the open part of the medulla oblongata, just above the apex, and this fold is called obex. So above this there is a horizontally running band of white matter known as the funiculus saphenous. Now, what is this triangular area on each side below the funiculus saphenous? This is known as the area postrema. Area postrema. Now this area is very important because here some vital physiological centers are located. Vital physiological centers are located. Vital means those centers which are essential for life. Now, what are these centers? Cardiac center, respiratory center, vasomotor center, etc. in this area postrema. Cardiac center, which control the cardiac rhythm. Respiratory center, control respiration. And vasomotor, blood vessels, vasodilatation, vasoconstriction. This is why this area known as the area postrema is important. Now, there are different types of judicial killing. A judge sentences a criminal to death. And there are different types. For example, firing squad. Second, hanging, then swording, cutting the neck with swording, electrocution, electric shock, in front of the firing squad, or poisoning. These are different types of judicial killing to the criminals. Now, it is asked which one is painless? Which of these types of judicial killings is painless? It is believed and it is said. And of all these, which one is painless? It is said that hanging is believed to be painless. But for the God's sake, do not try it. Now, why it is said that it is painless? For example, this is the unfortunate individual due to some serious crime. He is or she is hanged. Now you know here is a skull. Cranial cavity, and here is foramen magnum. Cranial cavity, and inside the cranial cavity, you know, is the brain. Midbrain, bones, and medulla oblongata. Behind is cerebellum. Cerebellum, midbrain, bones, and medulla oblongata. Then, you know, below it, below the foramen magnum, this is spinal cord. Passing through the vertebral canal. This is vertebral canal. Midbrain, bones, medulla oblongata, spinal cord, and this is foramen magnum. Now the rope is passed round the neck. And the knot is here, knot of the rope. Posterolaterally. Not directly posterolaterally here, just below the skull. Now, when the person hang down because of gravity, all the muscles, they pull downward. The spinal nerves pull downward. When the nerves, muscle, etc. pull downward, what will happen? You know that the medulla oblongata ends up to the lower margin of the foramen magnum. So because of gravity, the brain, including the medulla oblongata, it is pulled down. So the lower part of the medulla oblongata now occupy the upper part of the spinal vertebral canal here, and this is spinal cord. So can you see the lower end of the medulla oblongata it descends below the level of foramen magnum. And posterolateral to it is the knot. And here is first and second cervical vertebra. First and second cervical vertebra. Now here is the knot. What happens when the person is hanged on this knot? Strike against the first cervical vertebra and second, and push the vertebra forward. When the vertebra is fractured and it is pushed forward, you know what is here? Medulla oblongata. Now what is in the lower part of the posterior surface of the medulla oblongata? Area postrema. In foramen magnum is here. So it descends to the foramen magnum. So just below the foramen magnum, because medulla oblongata descends below the level of foramen magnum in the upper part of the vertebral canal. Therefore, this area postrema, where there are these vital centers, they are in the upper part of the vertebral canal. The knot strike against the cervical vertebrae, which is fractured and pushed forward, and the vertebrae, the fractured vertebrae, they damage the area postrema, the vital centers are damaged, and sudden stoppage of heart and breathing occur. Therefore, sudden death occurs. It is believed that this is painless because sudden death occurs. But God knows better. And for the God's sake, do not try it. God knows better what happens. But to some extent, we know that here in the area postrema, there are vital centers which control heart rate, respiration, etc. Now we finished with the brainstem. External features: midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. Ventral aspect, dorsal aspect, midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. We finished with the external features. Internal features we will discuss later on. Now we will discuss the surface attachment of cranial nerves. It is very important. You know there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. The first pair of cranial nerve, olfactory nerve, it is on the basal surface, orbital part of the cerebrum, olfactory bulb tract, already we discussed. Then from the eyeball, optic nerves, optic chiasma, no crescent. Next, from 3rd to 12th cranial nerves, they are attached to the brainstem, that is midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. So where these nerves are attached, to which parts of the, and to which aspect of the brainstem. Now, surface attachments of cranial nerves to the brainstem, that is the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. From 3rd cranial nerve up to 12th cranial nerve, all are attached to the brainstem, except olfactory and optic nerve. Now you can see this is ventral aspect of the brainstem, midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. Below it is continued as spinal cord, and behind the pons, medulla oblongata, right cerebellar, left cerebellar. This is dorsal aspect of the brainstem, dorsal surface of the midbrain, pons, then medulla oblongata, open part and closed part, and this is spinal cord. Now you know this is right crus and left crus on the anterior surface of the midbrain, and from medial sulcus, which is on the medial surface of each crus, oculomotor nerve, or 3rd cranial nerve on each side arise. Oculomotor nerve, which is the 3rd cranial nerve. One right, one left, ventral surface of the midbrain. This is third cranial nerve. Now, then there is a fourth cranial nerve, that is trochlear nerve. It arises from the lower part of the medial surface, lower part of the posterior surface of the midbrain. Right and left trochlear nerve. You know, these are caliculi. Two superior caliculi, two inferior caliculi, pherenomuli on each side on the dorsal surface of the midbrain. The trochlear nerves. You know, it is the fourth cranial nerve. And I told you it is the only cranial nerve which is attached to the dorsal surface of the brain. Next, this is the anterior surface of the pons. Then middle cerebellar peduncle, right cerebellar hemisphere, left cerebellar hemisphere. So, the fifth nerve, trigeminal nerve, arises from the ventral surface of the pons, close to the middle cerebellar peduncle, by two roots, sensory root and motor root. Sensory root is the lateral root, or motor root is the medial one. This is the fifth cranial nerve, trigeminal nerve. Surface attachment to the ventral surface of the pons, both on the right and left side, by a motor root and a sensory root. These are the two roots of trigeminal nerve. Which is the fifth cranial nerve, attached to the ventral surface of the pons, near the middle cerebellar peduncle. Next, I told you this is lower part of the pons, and below it is the medulla oblongata or bulb. So this is pontomedullary junction, and it is also known as the bulbopontine junction. So here three cranial nerves have surface attachment from medial to lateral side. At the pontomedullary junction. From medial to lateral side, abducens nerve. Facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, these are the three cranial nerves attached at the pontocerebellar junction or bulbopontine sulcus at the lower border of the pons. Right side, and here is left side. Sixth, seventh, eighth cranial nerves. Abducens nerve is the sixth cranial nerve. Facial nerve is the seventh cranial nerve. Vestibulocochlear is the eighth cranial nerve. So, third cranial nerve, ventrally. Fourth cranial nerve, trochlear, dorsally. Then again ventrally, trigeminal nerve from pons, ventrally. Then from medial to lateral side at the pontomedullary junction. Sixth, abducens. Seventh, facial. Eighth, vestibulocochlear nerve. Next, this is dorsal surface of the medulla oblongata, and this is posterolateral sulcus. posterolateral sulcus, right side, left side. So three nerves arise by several rootlets from the upper part of the posterolateral sulcus. Several rootlets in series from posterolateral sulcus of medulla oblongata, not spinal cord. From the spinal cord, spinal nerves arise. And these three nerves arise from posterolateral sulcus of the medulla oblongata by several rootlets from upper end of the posterolateral sulcus to the lower end. Which nerves? 9th, 10th, and 11th cranial nerve. You should know their names. 9th is glossopharyngeal. Glossopharyngeal nerve, 9th. 10th is vagus nerve. Eleventh is accessory nerve. So you can see from medulla oblongata, posterolateral sulcus in the form of several rootlets of 9th, 10th, 11th cranial nerve from above downward throughout the extent of posterolateral sulcus. These rootlets join together to form 9th or glossopharyngeal nerve, 10th or vagus nerve, 11th or accessory nerve. One nerve is left, 12th cranial nerve, hypoglossal nerve. It again arises by several rootlets from anterolateral sulcus of medulla oblongata. What is this? Anterolateral sulcus. From anterolateral sulcus of medulla oblongata, right from its upper end to its lower end, below the spinal cord, by several rootlets. They join together to form 12th cranial nerve. Twelfth cranial nerve, which is a hypoglossal nerve. You can see the rootlets of three cranial nerves. They arise from the posterolateral sulcus from upper end to lower end. Several rootlets join together to form 9th, 10th, 11th cranial nerve. Now, to correspond with the rootlets of 9, 10th, 11th cranial nerve, the hypoglossal nerve rootlet arise throughout the extent of anterolateral sulcus. Here, throughout the posterolateral sulcus are the rootlets of 9th, 10th, and 11th cranial nerve, and anterolateral sulcus, right from its upper end to its lower end of the medulla oblongata. The hypoglossal nerve arises by several rootlets to correspond with the rootlets of these three cranial nerves. Same is the case opposite side. On this side again 9th, 10th, and 11th cranial nerve. Here right side 9th, here is 10th, here is 11th cranial nerve, and here anterolateral aspect, anterolateral sulcus on the ventral surface is the 12th cranial nerve. So these are the surface attachments of different cranial nerves from 3rd up to 12th cranial nerve in pairs. 11th pair on the right side, 11th on the left side, from 3rd to 12th cranial nerve. And first, second, olfactory and optic, they are on the basal surface of the brain. So you can see that this is the importance of brainstem, that it gives attachment to most of the cranial nerves on both sides. Thank you very much. With this, we finished with the brainstem, external features of the brainstem, midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata. Now the hindbrain, another part is that which is called cerebellum. So our next topic will be the external features of the cerebellum. Thank you very much.